And hello, everybody. My name is Christian. I'm the host of the Disruptive Chef Entrepreneur Show. And you guys love, or is going to love, today's author. How many times do you have somebody who wrote a book, has a podcast, was a chef, helping out the industry, and some other really cool stuff? And you guys will meet that person right after this. Hello again. My name is Christian. I'm the host of the Disruptive Chef Entrepreneur Show. And for the listeners, you guys know that a few months ago, we scoured the internet and we had what we called ethical stalking. We were stalking a few different people who said they really need to be on our show. And today's guest was one of those people. As we found out when that person gave comments on LinkedIn, we were like, this is awesome. I love how that person thinks. And then we learned that person is a restaurant coach, has a podcast called No Hesitation. Absolutely amazing. If you haven't done so, run over there, make sure you like it. Then we found out a chef by trade. Then we found out she has a book. The book is called The Hospitality Leaders Roadmap. I was sold. We had a conversation with her a few weeks later, and you guys got to meet that person today. Not only is she amazingly good in what she does, and she has done a ton of stuff, she's an amazing human being. With that, Miss Christin Marvin, welcome to the Disruptive Chef Show.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. And I'm happy that you were able to find me on the internet because that means that all this work I'm doing behind the scenes is working. So thank you so much.
It was so funny for us that we do ethical stalking. So we were like, okay, what else can we learn about that? We learned out, we went on Facebook, we went all else that, and we kind of was like, oh, this is. And then I don't think I ever shared this. We create this about you. So we have a full thing about you.
My one cheater. I love it.
And so we absolutely love the way you show up in the marketplace. We absolutely love what you do. We absolutely love your background. I immensely respect that you wrote a book because that's not an easy thing. A lot of people talking about writing a book, but never get it done. You did. So help our listeners to understand a little bit who you are, how you started and why you started this, and what you currently do in the marketplace.
Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity to share my story. I started as a line cook at 15. Working in restaurants was my first job. And I loved the industry. I dipped out for a second in high school, tried retail. I was incredibly bored with it. And I got a job at a chain steakhouse, Outback Steakhouse, when I was 19. I learned how to serve. I learned how to bartend. I fell in love with the industry. I started as a cocktail server on Sunday afternoons when families were coming out of church. So I felt like the Antichrist trying to sell these, families beers and margaritas right after church with their kids in the lobby waiting for dinner. So that was kind of how I cut my teeth. And then my first night out of bartender training, they threw me in the well and we had a concert happening right next door at the World Arena. And we were already the busiest location in the state. And I just got my ass handed to me for 2 hours and I was covered in sticky peach schnapps and beer. And I took a step back and I just took in what had happened. And I was like, I don't know what that was, but I'm hooked and I want to do this for the rest of my life. So
It is amazing. I love that story. And for me, it just confirms how many of us in the industry, we said, we didn't find the industry found us.
yeah.
And even though we're trying to do something else, we eventually always come back to the industry. And for me, I first things first, I absolutely, like I said, I 100% admire anybody putting a book out there. It's not easy to write a book. And it's not easy for two reasons. It's a huge commitment. It's not just a huge commitment from a time. There's also some financial investments in that to do a book. And then also to making yourself vulnerable. So for us, we have a publishing company and a lot of people never get to the point to put their book on a marketplace because it makes you exposed. And by default, there's people which prefer things over other things in your marketplace. And it's not easy to do this. So talk to us. how was the journey for you to write a book? What prompted that writing a book?
Yeah.
And talk to us a little bit what the book is all about. I love the idea of giving people a roadmap to hospitality leadership because everybody needs that. And by the way, if you look a little bit behind the scenes and what I have learned about the book, we're still waiting for our copy, is that the things you talk about and teach, because you talk about your book all the time, uh, you can use this if you sell windows, if you sell cars, the principles are the same. What I absolutely
Yeah.
love about that. So
Yeah.
talk to us a little bit how that book came about.
Yeah, I mean, I worked my way up through the entire industry. Again, line cook at 15 to managing partner by 30. I'm hungry, driven. I fell in love with the industry and I learned so much. And I worked in so many different concepts from fine dining to high volume brunch. I was with an organization that went from independently owned to
Hmm.
equity and grew from 6 to 48 locations in 7 years. I've learned so much. But I burnt out. I got really unhealthy. I started drinking pretty heavily, and I had to start working with a coach to transform my life and start investing in myself and my leadership again. And through that journey, I discovered that one-on-one coaching was and it had been always my favorite part of the business, and I wanted to immediately make an impact and start a company, providing as many leadership development resources as possible to people in the industry because I feel like they have always been really lacking.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for the people like you and there's so many wonderful resources out there. But I started to get into this and I thought, okay, how am I going to be able to reach people in the restaurant industry, from chefs to line cooks to servers to AGMs to regionals to GMs, whatever they, whatever level they're at, how can I reach them? I said, well, I know that they're busy, right? I know they've got really long days. Are there pieces that I can provide to them based on how they like to learn? So I started kind of just experimenting. I was like, okay, I'm going to do short form content on LinkedIn every day before service in case they need a little nugget for pre-shift on
Hmm.
leadership or they need something to perk them up. I'm going to do articles on LinkedIn and my website if they want to take 2 or 3 minutes once a week to invest in their leadership. And then I was like, I'm going to start a podcast because if somebody intimately wants to put me into their ear or listen to me on the way to work or on the way home or when they're on the line or they're in the office, that's great. And then it's just been about building and building. And I thought,
That's fun.
I'm going to write a book because when I started to tell my story to people, they went, wow, that's that's incredible. And so I just again, was just through kind of experimenting and starting to put little tidbits out there and getting comfortable being uncomfortable and being vulnerable, which is something I'd never done before. I was like, "You know what? I think there's something here, and I'm gonna try it and see what happens."
I love that. So talk to us a little bit about the feedback you gotten about the tidbits you put out there on the book, because for me, it was really hard for me. I wrote books for other companies, but writing my own book, I was afraid of feedback. And because I'm a pleaser at heart, so I wanted to have a book out there which everybody loves.
Yeah.
And because there's a group of people out there, for them, whatever is wrong is always available, and they nitpick on some stuff.
Yeah.
How was that for you? How was the
Yeah.
process, first of all, to write the book and help?
Totally.
Because I know there's probably 80% of the people listening to this podcast in one time or another had the desire to get a book out there in the marketplace. So talk
Yeah.
to us. What was the deciding factor? Say, I will do this and I will do this now. How long did it take then
Yeah.
getting out there in the
I
marketplace? And how did you kind of get over making yourself vulnerable or getting your
yeah, I mean,
information out?
feedback was really hard for me in certain points of my career, and I know that, and I've been really working on that. When I
Yep.
gave my manuscript to my editor, her feedback was, "This lacks focus and structure." Okay, that's how bad of a writer I was. Okay, and I'd done a little bit of research on how to write a book, but I knew I needed some help, right? So
Mhm.
before that, I had been working with a coach. I said, I want, and as coaches, we challenge people to get uncomfortable. We challenge people to do big things and dream big. So I said, I want to write a book. And he said, okay, write 2 chapters. So I wrote two
Mhm.
chapters and then I sat on it for about 3 or 4 months. I flew down to Florida. I went to a podcasting conference and I met a book company. And I was like, you know what? I want to do this within the next 6 months, but I need some accountability.
Mhm.
And I listened to podcasts. I was teaching myself how to do this. And I just went home and I made a commitment to get up at 5 a.m. every morning, which I normally already do, and spend from 5 to 6 every morning writing. And I did that
Yeah.
for a few months, just to get it done. And I am a consistent person, and I'm very driven, and I'm very structured. So I've always got a checklist of everything that I need to do to keep me on track for when I get distracted by shiny objects and new business opportunities. And so once I got into it, it was great. I had a friend tell me, it was so empowering. He said, just Kristen, just write. All your job is to just get it all out on paper. And then you're going to go through so many rounds of the editing process to really clean it up and get it where it needs to be. So
Mhm.
once I got that advice, that was incredible for me. And it was really just freeing for me to just word vomit all over the pages, which I did. And then onto, the editing process, which was great. But again, that feedback was really tough for me. I had to take that feedback, walk away from the book for about a week and let it sit and process, and then be able to go back to it, because the book for me it's very vulnerable. It's very raw. It's a lot of stuff that I've never told anybody before. And I cried, I cussed at it, I went through all the emotions, I processed some things, I flipped it off a few times. It was very healing and therapeutic for me. But I had a conversation with somebody 2 days ago that read the book and said, who I'd never met before, said, I read the part where your husband went into the hospital because of drinking.
Mhm.
And I had to stop because I went through that exact same thing right around that exact same time. And that was a transformative moment in my life too.
Mhm.
And that for me was just like incredible.
And I love that. First of all, thanks for sharing that, because the industry is not very healthy.
Yeah.
And I worked in some places, and I know of some restaurants where the chef at the end of the night has a 6 pack, a 12 pack, because just to unwind. That's
Yeah.
not normal.
Yeah.
And it's not a healthy industry, because alcohol is always available, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, and for me, it's a struggle. And you making yourself vulnerable, putting this out there, because 60 to 80% of our industry goes through this in one time or another.
Yeah.
And if you follow statistics, we had in 2022, we had 1,100 suicides in the industry. We had 380,000 people got divorced, and close to 500,000 checked themselves into a substance abuse program. This is not good. It doesn't matter what
Yeah.
industry it is.
Right.
And people love it. The end of the day, you're doing it because you're loving it, and you moved into podcasting. So for me, and I want to hear how you gotten started. You probably know a friend of ours, Sean Walchef, said to me, Christian, you
Yeah.
need to do a podcast. And
Yeah.
I always learned, if somebody gives me really good advice, I act on it. So we had this conversation with him on a Thursday night. On Friday, we talked about it. On Monday, we had the first podcast out. And it was hard for me to do the 6-second intro at the time, because I don't like the way I look on camera. I don't like the way I sound.
Yeah.
I still
Totally.
don't.
Totally. Yep.
And I went in on a Sunday because I knew nobody from my team was here. My wife said, "What are you doing?" I says, "I'm going over. I just need to record an intro." I come home 7 hours later. She says, "So how was it?" I was like, "I didn't do it. I couldn't. I couldn't get it done." I started 900 times, and
Yeah.
then she says, "Okay, you just gotta suck it up." So we came back here, and we did it. But it was hard, and for me, because like I said, I still don't enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
How was your process around starting a podcast?
It was interesting because when I decided to be a coach, I was like, I'm going to be the best coach in the industry ever. Right. That's who I am. I'm just very
Mhm.
driven. So I started to look at some other really successful coaches and how their business models were built. What is the framework here, and how can I put my unique personality and spin onto it? So I kind of understood, okay, there's a writing component, there's a podcast component.
Mhm.
I was like, I don't know. I'm not very tech savvy. Well, I said that I'm not very tech savvy. But I am now. And then I've never been on video before. I hate the sound of my own voice. And I started just listening to podcasts about how to start a podcast. And I was like, okay, this seems very easy. The initial investment is pretty low. So if
Yep.
it's a train wreck, then I can walk away or sell my equipment to somebody else, or give it away or whatever. And for me, it was like, again, like you say yes and then figure it out. It was like, I can do anything. I'm going to just start. And then I started to come up with a really good strategy. And I said, okay, what am I going to feel comfortable with? Let's record. I had somebody helping me who had had some podcasting experience, which was awesome to speed the process up for me. I decided to record 9 or 10 episodes and with him as we were going to go in together, and then we were going to launch with 3 or 4. Got the artwork done, got the name done. He actually had a big shift in his job happen the week we launched and said, I can't do this anymore with you. So I redid all the artwork. We launched the episodes, and I just kind of had to say, you know what? Like, the first episode's never going to be perfect. The third episode's not going to be perfect. I'm going to learn and grow and shift this thing. And I'm constantly, I just did it yesterday. I was like, I'm going to redo my structure for 2025 on episodes, because you have to learn so much about what style
Yeah.
of episode, what your goal is with the show, da 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 da. So it's just a learning experience, and it's always evolving and it's always innovative. And there's so many awesome stories. Everybody has a really cool story to tell, and
Yeah.
to be able to have this platform to do it is awesome.
I love that. So how many episodes you have out there?
61.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Because I also learned in the progress, same as you. Um, so because we have more than 61 episodes out there. We're in the
Yeah.
top 1% of all podcasters,
Amazing.
because they say 99.9% never do more than 5 or 7, whatever the number is,
Right. Right.
and they kind of give up. So it's
Yeah.
pretty amazing. And then for me, what you just said reminds me. I have my little sign here, a daily reminder of progress over perfection,
Right.
and just get it done. And I love that you have done it. So let's pivot a little bit back to what you're really amazingly good at, is making an impact for your clients. So talk to us a little bit. How do you currently serve your clients, and what are some of the expectations and some of the outcomes of them?
Yeah, I work with clients on a one-on-one basis. I do some group coaching, and then I do leadership workshops as well.
Hmm.
And expectations, you've got to be willing to put the work in. You know that this is a really tough job from when you start investing in yourself and you want
Hmm.
to change your mindset. That's what I do from a coaching perspective, is help people shift their perspectives. I work with people to help them become mentally fit. I help them become better leaders themselves so that they can show up differently for their team, invest in their team, develop their team, through one-on-ones, through open communication, through creating systems and processes in their restaurants, to help them scale their restaurants. There's a million pain points. How to set boundaries so that they can
Hmm.
actually take a day off and not feel guilty about it. And it's just, the work has been extraordinary. I mean, when someone, I had a conversation with an owner the other day that has 3 locations now, and said, I don't know what I'm doing. Number 3 just really was like, that feels like the nail in the coffin. I'm trying to do this all on my own. I've got a young green leadership team. I've got to figure out how to manage myself right now and show up
Hmm.
differently and deliver for them, because they need development. And I love working with people that understand the gravity and the role that they play in being a business owner, because as you know, a lot of restaurant owners get into this because they're passionate, and then they have to figure out how to run the business side of things, and they've got
Yeah.
to figure out the people aspect, right?
And you know what? Today's culinary schools do not do a good job teaching the business aspect.
Yeah.
And if you hear that 90% of all restaurants which start fail in the year 1, 2, or 3,
Yeah.
is discouraging. And it's not because they don't make amazing food. It's
Right.
all the other stuff which goes with it. So if you look back, who is your perfect client avatar to any of our listeners out there? So maybe some of them might be in that field. So um, how do you serve them better than anybody else? So who is that person?
Yeah. I would say it's, I'll give you an example. I've got a restaurant right now that I'm working with, coaching all 3 of their owners independently.
Mhm.
They've got 1 location they're getting ready to open, 2 and 3. They all have incredibly different, diverse skill sets. One's financial, one's heart of house, one's front of house.
Yep.
They care so much about hospitality and about thinking differently and making an impact in their guests' lives and in their employee lives. They wanna put as much emphasis into the employee experience as they do the guest experience, which is what we
Yeah,
need to do as an industry moving
absolutely.
forward, and they leave their ego at the door. They know that they need help and support, and they wanna challenge themselves to be better. Not because they wanna be the best restaurant, but because they have intentionality and such passion around, the attention to details in everything that they do, and they know that that starts with how they show up as a leader.
I
So
love
I
that.
love yeah, I love working with people that are in full service restaurants, independently owned, and that wanna grow their business from 1 location to 5 locations, ideally.
So working with as many people as you have, what do you see one of the two pivoting, not pivoting, but linchpins of what people need to learn or get better at to succeed in, especially if they want to scale their business?
Slowing down.
Why do you say that?
I purposely say that and then I provide some space behind it because we move so fast, and independent restaurant owners wear so many hats, and it's never been
Mhm.
harder than it has been today. You've gotta be great
Yeah,
at marketing, you've gotta be great at finance, you've gotta be great at managing every aspect of your business, people, just everything, building community, and they put all this pressure and weight on themselves to be the expert in everything, and it's very rarely that they are able to take moments, an hour or 2 a week, and slow down and think deeply about what they're doing and strategize. They're
mhm,
constantly being pulled in so many different directions, and by nature, we are in this business to serve other people, and we are
yeah.
really good at giving, right? And we are terrible at receiving for ourselves. So, slowing down is the biggest opportunity because when you give yourself that space, the problems you can solve and the strategies that you can create and the vision that you can create and the roadmap for the future is absolutely incredible.
I absolutely love that, and for me, I experienced it this week. So for me, I was out of the office Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Even though I felt like I'm missing out because I was gone out of the office, it kind of brought me back and saying, "Hey, we need to pivot this." And last night, intentionally, I gave myself 4 hours to just sit there and say, "Hey, where are we taking this thing?" And being able to have that and allowing yourself to do that without feeling guilty. Because I think what most of our chefs and especially hospitality professionals feeling guilty when they do stuff for themselves. They're really good taking care of other people, but they're not really
Yeah.
good in taking care of themselves.
It's so true. I was having this conversation with a client yesterday because there's a huge cultural shift that needs to happen in the industry.
Mm,
And we were talking about when their sous chefs come back from a day off or 2 days off, if they get 2 days off, and they say to the staff says, "What'd you do on your days off?" If they say, "I went for a hike. I did nothing. I recharged my batteries." They look
yep.
weak, right?
Mhm.
But if they say, "Oh, I was working on new menu items," or, I was doing invoicing, or I was writing the schedule from home, then that's kind of like, they're like a warrior, right? It's
Mhm.
so and when you say that out loud, it seems, eh, obvious to us that that's not sustainable, that's not right. However, it's the culture that we've built in this industry, and we've gotta do something to change it. We've gotta have those conversations and set that culture of, we celebrate health and well-being in our employees. What does
Yeah.
that mean? Well, let's show you. And that starts with the
I
owners.
love that. Yeah, I totally agree because you talk a lot about the idea. Maybe we pivot into you hit a little bit employees. You talk a lot about the smart way of hiring. So talk to our audience a little bit your philosophy about behind it because you always say, "Hey, we need to hire somebody smarter than ourselves,
Yeah.
not just smarter, but having different people than ourselves." So talk to us a little bit where you see success for hospitality professionals around that.
Yeah, I mean, I learned this very early on in my career from one of my mentors that leave your ego at the door. And when you're interviewing somebody, make sure that no matter what position you're hiring them for, they are in the top 3 of your employee pool.
Mhm.
Always be raising the bar with the people that you're bringing on. sometimes those people are going to come in at a different position than what they've applied for. I've had
Yeah.
wonderful success in my company bringing in former restaurant owners and general managers as AGMs and having them get in tune with the culture and then working their way up to
Mhm.
giant leadership positions within the organization, right? There's a lot of value there. But if you can hire a humble person that's willing to come in and learn, that's great. But it's very important to be intentional about understanding what your business is lacking and bringing somebody in that has that skill set and not being intimidated by them and not having the imposter syndrome set in, but letting them come in and empowering them and giving them the voice to say, here's some areas where we're kind of falling short. I would love to hear your ideas and feedback. And then when they start to bring those ideas come up, give them projects and let them go and run with it, right? That's how you start
Understand.
to build sustainability in your organizations, create new systems and processes, develop new revenue streams, and hang on to your employees so that you can grow
Mhm.
and scale.
I just love that because it's super important. And even just before this, we interviewed two final people for a full-time position we have open. Candidate one came in very analytical. I know what you want. This is my skill set, and it fits perfectly for that. Person number two comes in, same background, same um, experience, but he came in saying, I've been thinking about this all weekend and all week, how I can provide value to you. And my
Mm,
mind is going how I can become an asset of this organization and help it grow. And as we start having this conversation, I so connected with person two because
yeah,
making themselves vulnerable and saying, hey, I honestly, I'm really excited about this,
yeah,
um, to where we went back, you said, "Hey, let's give number one another shot." And as we talked to number one, I listen. If I could, I would hire him as well because he's a great fit for some other things we do. Um, but we really went in with number two because for me, cultural fit is really important, and he fit a lot better than person number one. Not saying
yeah.
that the person number one was not a great fit, but and with us having this conversation reminds me that I was sitting there with Mackenzie and I said, "Hey, who do you like better?" Because that person will spend their time between her and myself. And
Mhm.
we both said number two is a better fit. And so for me, you also talk about this hire for fit. What do you mean when you talk to hire about fit or hire people which fit your organization?
It's a lot about culture for sure, right? And really understanding I
Mhm.
talk a lot about this with clients. We start with understanding where your mission statement is. If you have one, if you don't, we create one.
Yep.
What your vision statement is, and again, if you don't have one, that's okay. We create it, and what your core values are,
Hmm.
because that's where the expectations start for your employees. But it also helps you really understand and identify exactly who you need to be hiring for, what
Hmm.
characteristics you're looking for in a person, to distill it down, to make it black and white, so that you've got something measurable when you are interviewing two people or 400 people or
Hmm.
600 people like I've done for restaurant openings. It's important to be able to have something to take back and the day after the interview or with your team and talk about, does this person fit all these characteristics, right? Because we interviews are so different depending on who you're interviewing with on your team, right? And sometimes we have great conversation, we get this halo effect, right, where we love them, we want to offer them the job right then and there, and then they go interview with somebody else and the interview goes completely south, right? Because people are
Yep.
going to
Yep.
show up differently for other people. So if
Totally
you've
agreed.
got something, yeah, if you've got those building blocks of the mission statement, vision statement, core values, then it's much easier to know that you're hiring for fit and much quicker for you to weed out those people that are not a cultural fit. Now, obviously, that takes more time, right? But I can't tell you how many times we've hired, and I've had clients hire the wrong person that's a major cultural fit miss, and it's a
Yeah.
disaster, right? And the time and the energy that it takes to coach that person or try to change that personality or ask them to be positive when they're negative, it just takes away from every single aspect of your business.
Yeah, and it's expensive, and
It
it's
is
not
expensive. Yeah.
it's not easy to hire, and having the right team is really the success, especially in this because
Yeah.
we are in the service industry, and if that server, line cook, hits a client or meets a guest, they need to be an extension of who you are. Because I think if COVID did one thing, it gave people a very good radar if people are full of shit. Okay. Because if they tout one thing, but when they meet the people and the employees look miserable and you hear them gossiping in the back, that's not a great restaurant.
Yeah.
But if you walk in there and you see them working seamlessly together, they seem not even to talk to each other and help each other out. For me, that's success.
Yeah.
And I was out in St. Louis, and I always tell the story. I went into this. We were out there 3 months ago, so we go into the same place for breakfast. The very first time I went to this breakfast place, I was like, "Why did I get here?" I'm standing in front of the door, and I was like, and it said it had an A on it. Outside, not very presentable. Okay, we walk in, the most amazing place. I didn't feel safe, particularly the area I was in. There was young families and their kids walking around, and the way the staff work together and how they support each other. There was not, you take this seat, this seat. I mean, there was like seamlessly, hey, you would like coffee, you could ask anything. I love that. And they
Yeah.
genuinely seem to like each other, when they work in there. It was an amazing experience. The food was fantastic.
Love
I
it.
think somebody needs to help with some marketing, but the food was fantastic. The
Yeah.
atmosphere is absolutely amazing. And they make their own bread, and I'm a big toast guy in the morning. It was awesome. And I tell her, I said, you need to tell this story, this is amazing. um but it's fun to go there because of that. And
Yeah.
for me, I just sit there, and my two business partners, which were with me, they do their thing, and I observed this. It was like, it's amazing, they're so seamless, they make it look so easy, and they generally seem to enjoy to be there, and that's very hard to find.
Yeah, I was trained very early on in my 20s when I started managing that. Um, when somebody comes in to interview, watch them come in, see how they interact with the host,
Mhm.
see if they feel comfortable in the restaurant, see if they're friendly and kind, and then go. I would always go talk to the host about their experience with that person, because it's a good indication of if they're going to work well together, if they're personable, and how they are in an uncomfortable situation.
I love that. That's really good advice. So with that, I know we a little bit over time. We try to stick within a certain time frame. So I just want us first to say I absolutely love this conversation. I can talk to you forever. So talk to our audience a little bit. How can I get a hold of you? How can I learn more about you? And then maybe give us one piece of advice of somebody who said, "Hey, I'm not sure if I need a restaurant coach. I'm not sure if I'm ready for that." Help them to make that jump over the fence.
Yeah, absolutely. You can get a hold of me at kristinmarvin.com, and my name is spelled Christin. You can also call me or text me at 719-494-6074. I think one of the great things about coaching is that a lot of people don't know what it is, which is incredible. And
Mhm.
so if somebody's curious, I'm more than happy to gift a coaching session with them so that they can see
Mhm.
if we're the right fit and what the experience feels like. Every session is full of accountability and commitment
Yep.
and challenge, which is great, but it may not be the right time. It may be something that you want to invest in 6 months down the road, a year down the road, but there's a lot of moments of insight that you can gain from just one session with someone, and then determine when the right time is and who the right person is to be your coach.
Absolutely. I absolutely love that. And again, thanks for this conversation. As I said, I can talk to you forever. And to our listeners, we make sure to put her contact information in the show notes. So with that, we have a special program. We call it Rapid Fire Question Food Service Edition. So are you
Okay.
up for playing Rapid
Let's do
Fire
it.
Question Food Service Edition?
Let's do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, okay, here we go. Rapid fire question food service edition. So the way it works, I have 25 questions here, and you have the brand new set. Um, you give me a number, I read out the question, and we want you to answer quickly if you can. Okay, you up
Okay.
for that? Okay,
Let's
give
do it.
me question number one. Give me a number between 1 and
18.
25.
18.
18. Oh, is it okay to eat a dessert before dinner and call it reserved dining? Yes or no, and why?
Absolutely. I love to eat ice cream and dark chocolate. Those are my two things to splurge on, but I would prefer to eat them in the afternoon because then it doesn't disrupt my sleep. So there's a hot tip for you.
I love that. Okay. Next question between 1 and 25.
13.
13. 13. Should mac and cheese be eaten straight from the pot? Yes or no? And why?
Yeah, totally. Why not? As long as you're not burning your tongue. But I was gonna say you can still add your hot sauce or your chorizo or whatever ingredients you want into a pot or into a bowl. So, I mean, if you're gonna eat it out of a pot, it's one less dish you have to clean. So it's efficient.
Yeah. No, and if it's family or friends, okay, please no double dipping. Okay. Number between 1 and 25.
Let's do 5.
5. Should cheese be added to dessert more often? Yes or no?
She
Or why?
Yes,
Mhm.
yes, cheese should be added to everything more often.
Why?
Because cheese makes everything better, and there's a million different types of cheese. For me, the funkier, the stinkier, the better.
Okay, you're on an island on that one. I'm not coming. Okay, what is the another number between 1 and 25?
25.
25. Should we offer break-up meals on the menu designed to make you cry and laugh at the same time? Yes and no, and why?
Yes.
Why?
Because I think it's a wonderful opportunity to go above and beyond for guests that need something comforting in a really tough moment. I love
Uh,
that. And if anybody's doing that, I'd love to talk about how it's going. This is a cool experiment.
so yeah, we were thinking how great would it be because that's just by the menu choice, you know what's going to happen. Okay, last question between 1 and 25.
Number 2,
Number 2, is it okay to serve cocktails in a cereal bowl just to mess with your friends? Yes or no, and why?
as long as there's no children around that would mistake that cocktail for cereal, I think you're okay.
Awesome. And that completes Rapid Fire Question Food Service
Love it.
Edition. Thank you very much for playing. So, first off, thanks again for being here. Thanks again for the gift of your time. Thanks for sharing all the amazing things you do. So, one final word of wisdom for anybody who wants to write a book.
Just do it. Just start. Don't get caught up in the process. Don't get caught up in the perfection. Don't tell yourself you're not a writer. Just do it because there's so many resources and helpful things along the way. And it's just going to evolve. And what it's going to feel like for you to actually hold that thing in your hands is a feeling unlike anything else. Just do it.
I absolutely love that. So with that, thanks again for being here. To our listeners, make sure you go to our private community at the Disruptive Chef Club, get a front row seat of all the great things we do, and you also get a behind the scene glimpse on some of the upcoming episodes. And until next time, remember the Disruptive Kitchen, fire up your career, stay hungry for change. I'm Christian here with Kristen. We are out of here. So we are signing off. So go out there, be the change, be the challenge, and be the chef who sets the world on fire. So thanks again for being here today. We really appreciate you. And we're looking forward to coming on your podcast. And to our listeners, if you haven't done so, just
Thank,
get out there and be
thanks.
disruptive, everybody.
Thanks for having
Thanks,
me,
everybody.
Christian.